So I'll cross my fingers and hope this wasn't a flash in the pan, and this silly video didn't serve as a red herring or get your goat so that you'd give me a cold shoulder in the future. In fact, I'll nail my colours to the mast and hope that my no-holds-barred approach to letting the cat out of the bag on idioms may have licked your knowledge into shape. How's that for a parting shot? Dear Evelyn, idioms. What does it mean? Literally in the Greek, it comes from idios, which means strange or peculiar. It's a saying that says one thing but means another. English is full of them. Idiom dictionaries. Now, Evelyn, you must read them. They are fantastic. I imagine you're watching this as a grown-up now. I've probably given you a couple. They're some of my favourite books. You just flick through them. They have the idiom there, and then they have the origin story of that idiom. So I thought today what I would do is I would give you a history of 10 of my favourite idioms. That's not quite true. They're not my 10 favourite idioms as such. They're my 10 favourite origin stories for those idioms. Bizarre, surprising, and altogether insane. Watch this. To get someone's goat literally means to annoy somebody. Now, in the early 20th century, horses would often have a goat in their stables to keep them nice and calm. Sometimes someone who may have a bet against that horse would nip in the night before a race and steal the goat, thus leaving the horse particularly anxious for the race. They would get the horse's goat. To let the cat out of the bag, literally it means to reveal a secret. It comes from medieval markets where merchants would sell pigs in a bag, and maybe the more suspecting of the customers would open the bag only to find that they'd actually been sold a cat. They would quite literally let the cat out of the bag. No holds barred obviously literally means no limitations on our further action. It's a wrestling term. It means that no hold is barred. All the normal rules are suspended. To give the cold shoulder. Obviously it means to be unfriendly to somebody. It again comes from our medieval friends who may have a nice welcome guest come round and they would cook them some hot mutton and a nice warm family meal. But if they had an unwelcome guest, they would just slice off some old cold pieces of mutton shoulder. They would give them the cold shoulder. A parting shot. This literally means kind of like a final barbed comment or action as you leave. It actually is probably one of my favourites, and it's because it's a mispronunciation. The original was a Parthian shot, referring to the Parthian horse archers, who would feign a retreat, and as they retreated they would turn round on their horse and fire one last arrow into the now pursuing foot soldiers, a particularly deadly blow. It was a Parthian shot. To lick into shape, it means to make something presentable. Now this is great because it comes from an old classical misunderstanding, specifically from Pliny the Elder and Plutarch, who genuinely believed that bears would give birth to kind of amorphous, shapeless bear stuff, and then they would lick a cub shape out of it, and that's how cubs came to be. They licked it into shape. To nail one's colours to the mast. It means that we're just not going to give up. Now this comes from old warships who would actually take their colours down from the mast when they surrendered. So to nail their colours to the mast was a sign that no matter what, they weren't going to take them down, they weren't going to surrender. To cross one's fingers. Not really an idiom, is it? It's more an action than anything else. We do it when we want luck or when, we're fibbing. It actually is a quick way to make a cross, you see. It is originally a way of enlisting kind of help from the deity, either in getting what you want or protection from the curse of the devil for telling a fib. A flash in the pan. This is a project or something like that that has great promise but ultimately fizzles out. Now this comes from old flintlock guns, where you would kind of cock it back and you'd have a chamber with the bullet in and a large charge of gunpowder behind it. Now to light that gunpowder, you have a second charge of gunpowder outside the gun in a little pan that you light, and that goes in and fires the bullet out. If you haven't prepared the gun correctly though, that pan goes fizz, it flashes, but it doesn't light the main gunpowder. It's simply a flash in the pan. A red herring, it means to follow a false trail. It comes again from our medieval friends who wanted to train their hounds to hunt foxes. In order to do this, they took herrings, salted and smoked them, which turned them a red colour and made them stink. They then put the herrings in front of the hounds' noses and then took the herrings off on a little trail. The hounds would learn then to follow the smell of the herring. So when they came to hunt foxes, they knew how to follow a smell very well. We then move to the 19th century and a movement starts up to stop fox hunting from happening. In order to interrupt the fox hunt, these protesters would take herrings and on the day of the fox hunt, run off, make a trail with the red herring, so that the hounds would follow the red herring rather than the fox. And that was idioms, all 10 of them. Thanks, sweet dreams.